Well, hey everybody, it's Sandy. Welcome back to my channel dedicated to helping you advocate for your own health one topic at a time. Yeah, so I'm in the car again, guys. I tend to have to leave a fair amount of leeway when I have an appointment or something because, traffic is just really, Google can say it's, 10 minutes to get somewhere and then everything changes, just as you're leaving the house. And yeah, so I find that I actually have a fair amount of time in between things, and I decided to start, using some of that time to talk to you guys on video. So I just want to talk about briefly a letter of concern that a couple of viewers messaged me about that I had seen, and I think Dr. Bean maybe covered this on his channel as well, but I think he left out, I didn't listen to his whole lecture, but I think he left out something kind of important, and I don't know if that had all been elucidated yet anyway, but there was a letter of concern written by a cardiologist. It's sort of framed up as though it's a group, but it's really one cardiologist who wrote a letter of concern to the professional association saying that the messenger RNA vaccines cause a rise in inflammatory cardiac markers, and they are cardiac markers that are usually measured to determine the likelihood of a cardiac event. And he said that he had measured this in his patients for something like 2.5 months after vaccines, and said that at that time that the markers had remained elevated. So his presumption is that the messenger RNA vaccines raise inflammatory cardiac markers and ostensibly then raise cardiac risk, and that risk stays elevated at least to the time of his penning this letter. And I can understand, when I read these things, every now and then I find, something that does sound very sobering about issues with the vaccines. And I think before it's over, we're going to tweeze this all out, and we are going to find that there are some issues with the vaccines, just like we find that there are issues with medicines and even chemotherapy and all kinds of things. But first of all, I got to digging a little bit deeper on this particular issue, and then I'm going to talk about just more globally what's going to be my approach going forward when I hear some of these things about new issues or new potential issues with the messenger RNA vaccines. So first of all, when I dug, and this is what I don't think I heard Dr. Bean discuss, although like I said, I kind of had his lecture going while I was doing something else, so I apologize in advance if I'm wrong about this, but I don't think that he made a note of the fact that the author of this letter of concern was, first of all, is somebody who's kind of all but been excommunicated from scientific circles because he's published some kind of off the beaten path research, and more importantly, hasn't allowed data to be peer-reviewed, including this particular set of data. So, I thought that really screams out. I think that if you're going to levy a complaint like this, an allegation about the messenger RNA vaccines, and you say you've collected data and analyzed it from, all these patients, then you should allow that to be peer-reviewed. And to my knowledge, up to this point, that has not been peer-reviewed. I don't think it's going to be. So that, right away, I think where there's smoke, there's fire. Second of all, I will also say this person is a cardiologist, so he's already dealing with a population sample that's very skewed. It's not a random sampling of the population. So I'm not really getting too seriously hepped up about this. Do I think that cardiac markers maybe go up after a messenger RNA vaccine? Yeah, I would believe that. But I think a lot of inflammatory markers would go up, and I think we all know that the vaccine does cause a certain amount of inflammation. And, especially look at the lymph node inflammation in the armpit, where now women are told that they should delay having something like mammograms until, I think it's something like a month after one of the shots. So, yeah, I think the inflammation does go up. Do I think it would stay up? No, I think eventually it'll come down, just like if somebody has, unfortunately, an event, the inflammatory markers are up and then they come down, hopefully. So that's my very specific answer to this one very specific charge. But I do want to just say that globally, I have kind of honed an approach to some of these things that I'm just going to share with you, which is that, we all have to live in the real world. And in the real world, we have a choice between the vaccine or the disease. really, in my opinion, that's kind of what you're looking at. Is it possible that you could not get the vaccine and also not get the disease? Yes, I recognize that's possible. I think that has other implications. I think that has another mental cost to it, to continue to be able to completely isolate and, keep yourself in a no risk instead of a low risk situation. I'm not going that, obviously I didn't go that route. I've been vaccinated and boosted. So I think that while I want to read these things, and I'm not saying don't send them to me, because I appreciate, the people who have sent them to me, and I appreciate getting any information I get. But I think as a general rule, what I've noticed is the common denominator with things like this, including this last issue, is that I always seem to come around back to the same answer, which is that I only have the choice between the vaccine or the disease. And we know that the disease raises markers of inflammation. We know that the disease can cause cardiac events. We know that the disease can cause blood clots. We know that all kinds of things that the disease causes, which are unequivocally far more dangerous than whatever the vaccine is costing us. So, I'm just going to say that again, that, I choose the vaccine. I get it. If, some people aren't on that same page, I understand where they're coming from. I don't think it's the right decision to forego the vaccine. But until we find otherwise, and until we have a lot more choices, and until we get all these things much better honed, we all have to choose, between the vaccine and the disease. So yeah, I kind of, I read this, I digested it a bit. I was satisfied to find that, this hasn't been peer reviewed and everything else, but even if it had been, I'm still going to choose the inflammation of the vaccine against the inflammation of the disease. So yeah, that's my short answer. Let me know if any of you guys, particularly anybody who's really listened to the whole lecture that Dr. Bean gave, not that he's, the only source or anything, but he does a really good job of parsing out some of the details. And yeah, but I think I'm pretty well dug into this space. I've found now that after hearing one thing after another that people contend about the vaccines, I end up even more dug into my position. I just don't see that changing for quite some time. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to make a couple of little announcements here. The Gerson respirator, which I reviewed a little while back, the N95, that's a duckbill style respirator that I felt was particularly good for these deep set eyes and for small faces. I'm going to link the video right here. That went out of stock at Armbrust, unfortunately. It was available at the N95 project. So anyway, I got an email from Armbrust stating that that is back in stock, and my code Sandy20 for 20% off is still good. That's not a one-time code. Armbrust gave us a code that we can use as many times as we want. And again, that's not an affiliate link. I don't have anything to gain off of anybody using that code. I just try to leverage any influence I have to give a savings to my viewers. So there's that. I'm also going to get a couple other styles of duckbill respirators from Armbrust. I think they're on the way. So as soon as I have a chance to get started using those, I will let you know. I'll put up reviews on them, and I'm looking forward to giving those a try. I am on my way right now into an appointment for an osteopathic manipulation, which is, kind of like what I consider chiropractic on steroids. I'm going to be using the Ready mask, the adhesive mask. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'm going to link that video here. I think it's particularly good for haircuts, but I might have to be lying on my stomach and changing positions and stuff like that. So I'm going to get my Ready mask on here in just a moment. And I'm really enjoying that. And they have given us a very generous code of Sandy40. I think that they're the only ones besides Pure Organic that gave us that kind of a generous discount. So I really am liking those masks for very specific purposes, but really to get like a pack of them laying around, have it just for the occasional time where that would come in really handy. I highly recommend it. So, and then the other thing is we're going to be traveling, so I'm going to do my next videos probably while I'm traveling. It's going to be very similar to the last time when we traveled, which is going to be, it's a car trip. We're staying at actually we're staying in a condo, so the only thing is, unfortunately, we are going to have to go in and out through a lobby and up an elevator. I'll be wearing a respirator at that time. We are going to be in South Florida, and even my area and South Florida, and I think all through Florida, the infection rate is really low right now. So what they're calling this Delta fifth wave in the northern states, I don't think of it as a fifth wave. I think it's the same fourth wave, Delta. It's just that the South has a very different season than the North. In the South, being in the summer, it's when people are congregated indoors with air conditioning, and in the North, now that it's getting cold, people are congregated indoors with the heat. That's what I think is going on, because it's still the Delta. So I don't see, I know we're calling it a fifth wave, but I think it's the same wave. It just arrived later in the North. So anyway, the infection rate is very low now in South Florida, and my husband and I, having both been boosted just about 2 months ago, almost, so we're probably at the peak of our immunity. So we thought this would be a good time to go down there. We're going to be visiting our son. He lives down there. So I'm still not doing things like indoor restaurants, or nobody get me wrong, but I think it's a good time to travel and enjoy and have a little bit of fun and enjoy the weather down there. So I'll keep you guys posted on how that goes. And so I'll try to do 2 videos while we're away if I can. So in the meantime, let me know if this was helpful, or if you guys have any thoughts on these cardiac inflammatory markers as they relate to the vaccines versus the disease. It's always versus the disease, guys. So until next time, be well. Bye-bye.